Good evening and welcome to Face for the Newsfirst team. I'm Niresh Eliathambi. Well, if we in Sri Lanka want to build a modern nation, we need to transition towards one that values knowledge, values innovation, something which we have not valued enough over the past few decades, but we need to get there. And I am delighted to have with me this evening in our studio two people who have vast amounts of knowledge which they are sharing with Sri Lanka, fortunately for us. And I am speaking about Professor Calum Drummond and Professor Sujeeva Setunge, both from RMIT University in Australia. And welcome and good evening to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, so to give our viewers a little bit more background about these two very distinguished professors, Professor Calum Drummond, he's a distinguished professor and he's the Deputy Vice Chancellor and Vice President of RMIT University, Australia. RMIT is, of course, Australia's top research university, and RMIT stands for the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology. Professor Calum is also the chair of the Australian Research Council's Advisory Committee. He is an officer of the Order of Australia, very distinguished indeed, for his contributions to chemistry and materials science research and commercialization of that. And he's a member of the National Research Infrastructure Council of Australia, one of Australia's most distinguished scientists indeed. And Professor Sujeeva Setunge is the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research and Innovation of STEM College at RMIT, and she is, of course, a Sri Lankan Australian success story. She is originally from Visakha Vidyalaya in Colombo, and then she graduated from the University of Moratuwa and then went on to Australia, where she obtained a PhD at Monash University and then joined RMIT as a senior lecturer in civil engineering, and then she worked her way up to head of department, deputy dean for research and innovation, and associate deputy vice chancellor of STEM College. So quite a success story indeed, Professor Sujeeva. And Professor Sujeeva has, of course, been on our programs at Newsfirst before. So welcome back, Professor.
Thank you.
Right. So let me start with Professor Calum. Professor, could you explain a little bit to our viewers about the team that you have led to Colombo, and it's, I believe, a 10-member team, and the wonderful programs which RMIT has been conducting with Sri Lanka for several years now, and the new programs that you have just launched during your visit.
Yeah, and thank you for that question. So RMIT is a values-based university, and one of the values that we have is that we want to contribute back to the society in which we operate in. And we have a broad definition of what society means for the university. As many of your viewers will appreciate, Australia is a very large island. It borders with the Indian Ocean, it borders with the Pacific Ocean, and so we see that Australian institutions, public universities like RMIT, has a role to play in the Indo-Pacific region. And as part of our the role that we're playing in the Indo-Pacific region, we want to contribute to the advancement of countries like Sri Lanka. One of the reasons why we want to do that is because prosperity leads to better living standards for citizens in countries, and along with better living standards becomes a more security or more secure environment, and security in the region is very important for all the nations in the region. You'll also, many of your listeners will know that in the 1950s, the Commonwealth nations came together in this city, in Colombo, and they agreed that they would work together to advance the education of all the Commonwealth nations. Some Commonwealth nations were more advanced than others, and so that led to the Colombo Plan, and the Colombo Plan in various guises has been operating for 75 years now, and Australia has been a key player in that in countries like Sri Lanka, and so we're proud to consider to continue that legacy that was first associated with the Colombo Plan. We see our role in the region, as I said earlier, as an important role for us to play.
Excellent. And your team this time was a 10-member team, which is a very large team indeed. So you've really taken Sri Lanka very seriously, and your work, your collaborations with the higher education institutes of Sri Lanka. I believe you're working with 4 different universities in Sri Lanka.
Yes, we are. We're working with 4 different universities, and the team of 10 people we brought, 5 of those have their origins in Sri Lanka, so they bring that passion, their drive to deliver value, to give back to their country of origin. And then we have 5 non-Sri Lankans who also have that passion, that drive to deliver impact to the region. And that combination of the deep knowledge of the country with people that have subject matter expertise in other areas, I think is a very good combination. We particularly wanted to bring a reasonably large team because we wanted to have coverage over quite a number of areas that we're having discussions with those 4 universities that you're talking about. So Peradeniya, Muratua, Ruhuna and Japura, Sri Japura, are the 4 universities, and they are what is known as comprehensive universities. So they have a lot of activity, and so we felt like we needed to bring a team of 10 to be able to engage on a broad front.
Right, and Professor Sujeeva, let me bring you in here, and I'm sure our viewers would love to hear your thoughts on some of the programs that you are carrying out now. And let me ask you, I think RMIT has been working with Sri Lankan universities for 4 or 5 years now, and you have this amazing PhD program where RMIT is actually supporting Sri Lankan postgraduate students to gain higher qualifications at RMIT. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, Niresh, very happy to. So we started the joint PhD program in 2019 with the University of Peradeniya and University of Moratuwa, initially with a small cohort to train PhD students for doctoral degrees, and then once we demonstrated that these students are really doing well and the program is sustainable, we expanded it to University of Ruhuna and University of Sri Javadpura as well. So the program started with engineering, however now it has expanded to all disciplines which are available at RMIT University. And we are delighted to have the University Grant Commission contributing to the program, and also to engage our junior lecturers of all Sri Lankan universities, giving them the opportunity to undertake a PhD degree from RMIT University. So we started with a small cohort, but now we have 14 PhD completions, which is really great. And we do have, if you count all the students at different stages, we have 85 candidates.
85, that's
Candidates
fabulous.
in progress. So the arrangement is candidates spend 2 years in Sri Lanka working with the host institution in Sri Lanka and spend 1 year in Melbourne. They are supervised jointly by RMIT University and the Sri Lankan host institution. Calum mentioned the 4 institutions before. And we do waive the tuition fee for the duration of the candidature, and also we provide a living allowance to the candidates when they are in Melbourne. So it's an opportunity given to Sri Lankan candidates, and we are delighted to see them progressing very well through the program.
Right, and that's a very generous measure of support, if I may say so. And your latest cohort, how many candidates do you have in that one?
So the latest cohort is with the University Grant Commission. So they have 12 candidates selected for this round this year. In fact, although previously we had a number of candidates from under the University Grant Commission program, we haven't really celebrated the program. And during this visit, we were able to do that. And Honorable Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya attended the celebration. So we were also delighted to offer the certificates to all the scholarship recipients. So we had a total of 30 recipients, which includes the ones who have already started at RMIT and the 12 new candidates who are starting in the new year.
Fabulous. And Professor Calum, you've also, during this visit, launched a very interesting and perhaps unique degree program with a non-university, and that's the National Water Supply and Drainage Board. Could you tell us something about that? Because this is very interesting.
Well, first of all, I have to say that is a very impressive organisation that's been set up in Sri Lanka. They are visionary, as from what I can see, in terms of the normal behaviour of water authorities around the world. And they know that in order to be successful, in order to deliver the best value to Sri Lanka, they need to be innovative and they need to grow their innovative capacity. So therefore we've set up a joint Masters by Research program with them. The reason why it's Masters by Research and not PhD is if you're in industry, you need a more short-term focus, and by using a Masters by Research vehicle, you can have a series of, for example, 6-month projects that address the specific needs of the industry, in this case the water board, whereas PhDs you need to have a stronger emphasis on advancing the academic discipline, which is also useful for industry, but it's more a medium to long-term focus rather than a short-term focus. The other day when we visited the water boards, they shared their strategy with us. I have to say it is, if I can use the word, it is an awesome strategy. It is fantastic. They've obviously put a lot of thought, a lot of consideration into it, and we're very pleased that we can be part of the delivery of the research agenda associated with that strategy. Australia and Sri Lanka actually have many similarities in the challenges they face in the water and sanitation area. I mean, one of our favourite poets, Dorothy McKellar, her most prominent poem is one entitled My Country, and she talks about a land of flooding rains and drought. Now, perhaps you don't have the droughts the same way that we have, but you have the flooding rains here, and also what that poem indicates, and Sri Lanka shares this similarity, that the water is unevenly distributed. It's unevenly distributed in Sri Lanka, it's unevenly distributed in Australia, and therefore those distribution issues are similar for both countries, and we can work together to deliver national benefit for Sri Lanka, national benefit for Australia, and also assist in workforce development here. Clearly the Water Board wants to upskill its staff, and we're very pleased to be part of that upskilling.
Fabulous indeed. Professor Calum, could you tell us a little bit more about RMIT University, its origins and its journey up to the present day when it's a very famous university?
Yeah, so RMIT was established in 1887. Its establishment is unusual in the Australian context in that a person who had made a lot of money selling provisions to the gold miners in the Victorian gold rush, near the end of his life he decided to give back to the society that had helped create his wealth. So he said, I will put £5 million on the table, and if someone matches that, we'll create the institution that subsequently became RMIT. The people that matched the funds was actually the working class of Melbourne, and it was literally a halfpenny, sixpence, tuppence over 3 years to get the matching funds. And in a way, it's a feel-good story because the people whose children were going to benefit from this new educational institution were the people that half funded it. So they could see the value in education for changing their children's lives, and through that, their families' lives. We're still a university that many of our students are first in family to go to university, and we're actually proud that we give people opportunities to improve their family situation and to improve their personal situation. And in part, that's why we were attracted to working with a country like Sri Lanka, because our roots, our DNA is founded with a social conscience, and that's what we're trying to do here. RMIT was founded in the second industrial revolution to produce the workers and the technology for that. Nowadays that would be referred to as Industry 2.0. The world is in Industry 4.0 at the moment, so we've had a few transformations. And also people talk about Society 5.0 now, and so it's not just about productivity, it's not just about meeting industry's objectives, it's about corporate social responsibility as well. And so that was associated with our origin, and we continue to this day to think about social responsibility in connection with working with industry. Our motto is skilled hand, cultivated mind. So we're an applied university, and for us it's all about doing practical things in a smart way and delivering back to society.
Wonderful. And Professor Sujeeva, the Prime Minister in her address to the PhD students and of course to your team spoke of transdisciplinary research, which is something that has taken on a new level of importance in the world around us. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Thank you. Yes. So most of the societal problems are complex, and when you're trying to develop or deliver research outcomes to solve complex problems, you need multiple disciplines coming together to contribute to the solution. So if you take for an example disaster resilience, so for natural disasters, say for a flood, scientifically we can predict what's the flood level would be, what would the impact be on your infrastructure, and what would the impact be on the community. However, community behavior drives their resilience, so you cannot predict that. So you need the contribution from social scientists and anthropologists to help us understand if something happens, how would we ensure that community is resilient. So the multidisciplinary approach to solving complex problems has been a core attribute of RMIT research program, and that this is led by establishing 8 enabling capability platforms which allows us to work together to solve complex problems. Another example is housing issue currently Australia is facing. I'm sure there is a similar issue in Sri Lanka as well. It is a problem which needs to be addressed by built environment professionals, civil engineers, and then social scientists who actually can identify solutions. And then you have artificial intelligence and other enabling tools and technologies which requires to be brought in. So this is something we have developed skills for over the past 10 years or so, and I believe that we are the best university in the country in interdisciplinary research. In fact, we are ranked first according to the rankings as well.
Wonderful. Professor Calum, when I was doing a little research on your university and on you, I noticed that both you and RMIT have a certain high level of expertise in bridging the gap between research and practical industry. It's not just about academia. It is very practical, isn't it? And could you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think this is one of your fortes.
Yeah, so we have a saying in RMIT that the conduct of excellent research is necessary but not sufficient. It's actually what you do with that excellent research to benefit the community beyond the academic community. People often talk about the triple bottom line being the economy, environment and society. I'm a great believer in that you can't have the society that you want or the environment that you want unless you're generating wealth as a nation. So the economy is very important, and the role that universities can play in creating prosperity is very important. Now, the universities don't create industry jobs. It's actually industry themselves that create that. We don't make the new products. We don't put in place the new industrial processes. It's all industry that does that. So if we want to have that impact beyond the academic community, we need to partner with the people on the steps after our steps on that pathway to what people call impact, or in industry it might be pathway to market. So if you think about it in a value chain approach, we're right up the front, and we need to be able to partner to be able to influence the steps that come after our step. That means we need to be strongly engaged with industry. You need to be talking to them all the time. You need to understand their drivers, so what drives them as organisations, so that you can partner with them to deliver value to them. Another saying that we have is it's partnering for success. And sometimes I get asked, how do you know that you're successful? And one of the responses I give is, I know we're successful as a university when our partners say that we help them be successful.
Right. So, Professor Calum, we in Sri Lanka were trying to build a modern nation, trying to transcend the old Sri Lanka, move beyond it, and move to a target of a modern nation. But how do you transition to this modern nation? How does knowledge come into play in doing so?
Well, first of all, if you want to make a shift in society, the people that comprise that society need to see the value. They need to see the benefit for them as individuals. They need to see the benefit for their families, for the communities in which they live in. So the first thing you need to do is articulate that benefit, that value, that aspiration, if you like. What does that, achieving that vision of a modern society, a modern country, what does that actually mean in terms of improvement for individuals, families and communities? And once you've articulated that, I think the change process becomes easier, because then people are incentivized to become part of that journey. In any change process, it's good to identify who the fast adopters might be, and then they essentially become the role models, because people see, well, they picked up the change quickly, they've transformed, and we can see that their lot is better for that. And then you get what's known as the fast followers, because they see the benefit that the fast adopters have identified.
Right. And in the case of Sri Lanka, we need to take a quantum leap forward in this. And do you believe that knowledge has a great deal to do with this?
Well, if you want to move to a modern society, it needs to be knowledge based, because if you look at advanced economies around the world, their premier industries are knowledge based, and that's what gives them a comparative or a competitive advantage, that foundational knowledge that they use. And in order to stay competitive, they have to continue to refresh that knowledge base. But it's not knowledge for knowledge's sake. It's knowledge with purpose. You have to think about, okay, I'm generating this knowledge, but how am I going to apply this knowledge to, if you're a company, to improve the bottom line, if you're a society more broadly, to improve the situation for the citizens in your community. So knowledge is core, but you can't just stop with the generation of knowledge. It's actually what you do with that knowledge that's incredibly important.
Absolutely. And Professor Sujeeva, let me ask you about the gender dimension of knowledge and implementing and expanding knowledge to make this a modern Sri Lanka. Now, in Sri Lanka, our young women don't have a lot of role models, because basically the women of Sri Lanka are bearing the brunt of labor, Middle Eastern labor, and the apparel industry, the tea industry, and so on. How important is it for young women throughout Sri Lanka to have role models such as yourself, such as our Prime Minister, who can basically be beacons of light for our young women to look up to and aspire to?
Thank you. I think it's very important. There is a saying that we can't be what we can't see. So role models are very important in progressing opportunities for female people. And I think it's also the recognition. Say, for example, our university has very strong processes to ensure that we have the gender diversity in our staff and in our student cohort as well. So we have implemented numerous measures to enhance the participation of women in science, for example. So in engineering, for example, we have a very the number of women is less than what we would really like them to be. So this round of Vice Chancellor's research fellowships, for example, were female only for engineering disciplines. So we need regulations and support mechanisms to ensure that women have the opportunities. And of course, knowledge is a key in all that. So this needs to start from an early age, early career stage, with special provisions for progressing women through the academic system and also through the workplace. So one thing I notice is that so when we advertise for the PhD program, we have all these women, a large number of women or female applicants through the program. However, we sit in the university tables, we don't see many women leaders. So it's very similar in industry scenarios as well. So in Australia and other countries, I have seen that the female participation is a requirement in a board. There is another dimension. So the dimension I mentioned is about equity. But what is not very well realized or known is that female participation is actually conducive to a more progressive society, because females make a lot of decisions. So they make decisions on what to purchase, what school the children go to. So they have a lot of influencing power. So having females in leadership roles is very important for progression of organizations and also progression of the country. As you said, we have a great role model in the Prime Minister. So we need more role models to enable this, and supported by resources and regulations and opportunities for women. It's not just because we need gender diversity, it's because it's good for the business. You asked the question earlier about how do we change the country from current position to be very a land of abundance, which is what we want Sri Lanka to be. So Sri means land of abundance. So that's what we would like the country to be. So there is this huge underutilized resource. You get them into leadership roles, they will bring a different dimension, different perspective, and the pathway will become, I would say, faster.
Right. So women are actually an underutilized resource for the country because they are not in more influential positions. That I think is something we need to think about and we need to work on. Thank you very much for that.
I just want to add another thing. In Australia, the highest paid CEO is a Sri Lankan woman. So she leads a Macquarie Bank.
Right. In fact, she's quite famous down here as well.
Yes.
And, we're waiting for the day when the highest paid CEO in Sri Lanka would be a woman. Hopefully, there will be a lot more women CEOs in our country.
We have to say, with the PhD program we're doing with the University Grants Committee, so far 30 people have been selected, and it's merit-based recruitment. 28 of those 30 are female, and that's based on merit. But I also think that's fantastic that the University Grants Commission, in collaboration with the Sri Lankan universities and RMIT, are promoting women and promoting women's advancement through that program.
Right. Well, 52% of our population in Sri Lanka are women, and I think more than 60% of our undergraduates are women. So it is high time that women, that we as a society, we use women in the key positions for the betterment of society. Now, Professor Calum, can I ask you about the National Initiative for Research and Development, which you are involved in with, I think, the UGC and the Ministry of Education?
Yes, so the National Initiative for Research and Development Commercialization is a unit that was set up at the start of this year, and it was set up in recognition of what we've been talking about earlier in this conversation, that there needs to be a focus on research translation, and there needs to be a focus on positive impact beyond the academic community. So I think it's a fantastic initiative for Sri Lanka. in the context of you talking about a modern Sri Lanka earlier, I think this is one of the things that needs to be done. Once again, culture is at the heart of it. So you can implement new policies, new procedures, but unless you focus on creating an appetite for that type of activity, those policies and procedures will not land in fertile ground. So this unit, I think, is exactly what Sri Lanka needs, and we're looking forward to working with this unit and assisting where we can, because it's also aligned with the workforce development that we're doing. It's about getting the fundamentals right in order to transition Sri Lanka to that modern nation that you're talking about.
Right, and I'm afraid we're almost out of time. So can I ask Professor Sujeeva, would you like to sum up your thoughts on Sri Lanka and the prospects of Sri Lanka becoming or moving towards being a modern nation? And you've been watching from Australia, you've watched from afar. What do you see now?
I believe we need to create a generation of entrepreneurs who actually can build on the knowledge and move new knowledge to practice, for new products, new services, and also look at whatever resources the country has to be added, to be changed to value-added products and services, so that we do have a economic prosperity and economic benefits which will help us to be sustainable over a long period of time. So we need some radical creative ideas, and as Calum mentioned, NIRDC is one great step in the right direction. We need to utilize this to create the next generation of innovators who can reduce the cost of the way of doing things and improve the sustainability of the society.
Excellent. And Professor Calum, your final thoughts on working with Sri Lanka, on RMIT supporting Sri Lanka on its journey towards becoming a modern nation?
Yeah, so all the Sri Lankans I know are wonderful people, and they're intellectual powerhouses. And maybe I've just lived in a closeted environment, but I think, your core asset is your people. And all the Sri Lankans I've met are fantastic. And so I think, if you can tap into the power of your people and you can release the potential within your people, then you will achieve that modern nation status. It's all about the people. It's a people business.
And that's a wonderful message indeed. My thanks to Professor Calum Drummond, Distinguished Professor and Deputy Vice Chancellor and Vice President of RMIT University, and Professor Sujeeva Setunge, Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research and Innovation at STEM College of RMIT. Thank you very much for being with me this evening. And thank you to you at home for watching. Don't go away because the news is coming up next. Have a great evening.